Do you know what the average age is of a woman who has an abortion?
I haven't really done that study in a long time, but it's pretty much been in the high teens and early 20s. The
Right.
college and career woman is the most susceptible to abortion. Of course, lots of teenagers have abortions, but for the most part, it's young college students or young career women. That's where I fell. I was 23.
You were 20. You were 23.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that most women know, teenagers or young adults in their 20s or whatever? I know that other women get abortions too, but do you think they know when they go in there what they're doing is wrong in their heart? You know what I'm saying? It's so unnatural.
Yes, I do. I think that we do, really. Most of us have some, discernment or, that this couldn't be wrong. But I just picture myself, and I remember my own heart. And I am now, about the TV series that's being released, Knock TV.
Mm-hmm.
You may be going to talk about that in a minute, but there's a TV series that's about to be released that's using Surrendering the Secret in the series. So I am watching these women. They're sending me the series as they're finalized, and I'm watching this group of women today go through Surrendering the Secret live. It's a reality show, and they're going through it live. And I'm listening to their stories fresh and realizing, that all these years later, these 25 years later, the story is still the same. We choose abortion out of ignorance and fear and panic. There's one reference that says that having an abortion is like an animal caught in a trap chewing its own leg off to get free.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That is a very perfect analogy or picture of a woman facing an abortion decision. We are in a moment of panic, of fear, of what we feel is our survival instincts kick in. Sometimes it's to protect other people. Most often it's to protect our own reputation and our own desires, but sometimes it is for others. And so I don't think that at the moment of that choice, it's often very much focused on what I think is right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that must have come in and out of my heart, but I was not a Christian, so I had no biblical foundation for the truth about abortion. And unfortunately, the church is so silent about this issue, especially from a healing perspective, that many women today in our colleges right around the corners don't know what God says about abortion.
Mm-hmm. Pat, what is the effect, and of course we want to get back to the effect on women, but what is the effect on men? Men who maybe talk their girlfriend or their wife into having an abortion, or on the flip side, men who desperately did not want the abortion to take place but were obviously overruled. What is the effect on men in terms of their own emotional suffering on this issue?
I have a new book, as you mentioned earlier. It's called A Surrendered Life. And the thing that the new book does that the Surrendering the Secret did not do is that we really take a look at that. We take a look at what the result is of, on men for abortion. So we've got an entire chapter where men are responding to their past abortion and their feelings. But I think a lot of the effects, are not that different, except for the fact that, men have that instinctual, God-given, part of them that makes them want to protect their child, their children, the women in their lives. So one of the things that happens immediately with men is that they have that instant feeling of shame and failure in an abortion decision. So they have so many of the same feelings: hurt, fear, feelings of injustice, feelings of failure, feelings of frustration, and then they have some very similar responses of alcoholism and relationship issues and anxiety, depression, low self-worth. But those things are so covered by our societal approval and affirmation of choosing abortion that men and women don't even deal with those emotions until all of a sudden they pile up and they just are confronted with a situation that I've got to think about this.
Talking to Pat Layton she's founder and president of Life Impact Network in Florida, and she has a ministry to women who've had abortions. It's called Surrendering the Secret, and it's you can go to their website, surrenderingthesecret.com, surrenderingthesecret.com. And do you think, I know your focus is on ministering to women who've had abortions, but what has been your don't you think that the use of is it the 3D ultrasound?
Mm-hmm. 4D.
The 4D?
That's a
and I
video,
think the 4D just is the motion part,
right,
where they actually see the baby moving around as opposed to a three-dimensional shot. The 4D actually allows women who come to our center to see their baby moving. We actually see Psalm 139 come to life.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, though, that has changed. I think that seeing that not necessarily in an abortion setting, but in a OBGYN
right,
pregnancy setting,
right,
that registers in the mind of the person, and I think that's what's led to. I haven't seen the latest Gallup poll surveying, but like about 3 or 4 years ago, for the first time since Roe versus Wade, a majority of Americans were self-described pro-life.
right.
And I just think that I was hoping that was. Have you seen any? Do you know if that's still? It was close. It was a little over 50%. But I'm just saying this technology that we've had now for the last few years is making an impact on how Americans think about abortion.
Absolutely. Our pregnancy centers, my centers in Tampa, are both located physically right next to our center's largest abortion facility. And I'm in Florida. Florida ranks the 4th or 5th largest abortion provider in the nation consistently. My city had 90,000 abortions last year.
Wow.
So we are very, Tampa is a city that it has a very high number of abortions. So we have our clinics, our pregnancy centers located right next to abortion clinics. Physically, you can reach out and touch the abortion clinic next door. So we've been using ultrasound for about 8 or 10 years in our centers. Last year, we had 400 babies saved from abortion. So we absolutely know and have seen dramatic results in women who see their unborn child making a choice for life. Of course, there are a combination of things that happen in a pregnancy center is that you're actually getting the woman in there. You are able to discuss the decision with her and to share her options and talk about what she's going through. And so there are a lot of things that allow us in crisis pregnancy centers to help women make a choice for life. But the ultrasound is by far the most powerful to show a woman the life of her unborn child. Many women don't actually deal with their abortion experience until 10 or 12 weeks gestation, at which point they can clearly see that it is a life. And so it has been a tremendous help for us in, helping women hear the truth and see the truth with their own eyes.
Pat, it seems to me that the science that's out there continues to deny the reality of any kind of post-abortion, trauma. And yet we continue to hear of hundreds and thousands of women who are trying to give voice to their pain. What is the disconnect there? I mean, perhaps I just don't know what the most recent science says on this, or do you think there's an agenda here, or why is there a disconnect between what I hear you and others we have on these programs talking about the pain of women, and yet the scientific and medical community just refuses to acknowledge it?
I know. I think I'm just not really smart enough to know the answer to that, but I will tell you this, is that I am a firm believer that one of the reasons that we continue to lose this battle is because the voice of the church, the body of Christ, is silent. And I think the truth is that there are not enough women who are coming forward and telling their stories of their past abortion from a healed perspective, from a biblical perspective, sharing the truth about what their lives were like with post-abortion trauma and the experiences they've actually been through. The ones that are speaking out are the ones fighting for the right to abortion. So, the studies and the statistics have always kind of spun my head around because they come from so many slanted perspectives from one side or the other. All I know is that when I walk into a group of women, there are truly the 43% in that group who've had past abortions, and they are truly sharing the stories that followed them out of the abortion clinic. So I just deal with the realities every day of watching the truth about abortion come to life. I don't know how these surveys happen that deny what every woman I've ever ministered to has lived with.
I think it's political.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I can imagine is that each side, politically, each position is pushing forward, its perspective and truth. So it's like any survey you read is going to be put forth by that position. Mm-hmm. But all I know is real life women. I could walk into your studio today and find close to half the women who work there who have had a past abortion who could sit and tell me about their abortion, and when they did, they would have to have a box of Kleenex.
Well, you can't participate in the taking of an innocent human life, in this case an unborn child, without it affecting your soul.
That's right. That's just the truth.
We're out of time. SurrenderingTheSecret.com. SurrenderingTheSecret.com is the website. Pat, thanks so much for being our guest.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a great honor to be part of your station.
Pat Layton, Layton, our guest. We'll be back after the news.